about house spirits, and I realized that there's a lot of questions to cover, and I thought that I would try to cover some of those questions. Oh my god, I'm trying to take off my jacket because it just got really hot in here. Oh, that's because that's on 30. All right, I understand now what's going on. Let me perch you. Let me see if I can perch you in some way, shape or form without destroying the shot. Oh, I'm taking off my heavy down jacket. It's currently 2 degrees. When I left the house, it was below. All right, so let's get stuck into it, shall we? Because thank you so much for all the beautiful feedback on those videos. I'm really, really loving, I've got to say this, I'm really loving those witchy chats. I've said it before, I'm saying it again. I love it. I love the way that people are responding to it. Thank you so much for all your beautiful comments. The more you comment, the more I will continue to create this type of content. Really zone in on a small thing and then just expand on it, like really talk about it. Because I think that, and this is not a judgment or a criticism because each to their own, but I find that there is a lot of repeated information on YouTube, especially in the sphere of witchcraft. And so I want to step back from that. I want to talk a bit more about, you know, spiritism, traditional witchcraft practices from a folk magical perspective, which when I say traditional witchcraft, what I mean is not traditional British witchcraft, but I'm talking about the traditional practices of witches all around the world in that folk magical, personal tradition, family tradition type of setting. I come from a family tradition. My form of Umbanda and spiritism and magic is not something that you will find readily available all throughout Brazil. Umbanda is, but the type of Umbanda and the other practices that are associated with our family's terreiro, with our family's Coven, is very different from place to place. And you're going to find that throughout Brazil. Not all Covens, not all terreiros or spiritist center operate in the same way. They are often ruled by a specific spirit. My family's ruling spirit for our terreiro is São João Batista, which is Orixá Xangô, and he is the keeper of that space. And so you're going to find it different from terreiro to terreiro. So it's always really fascinating for me to look at that much more closely and to see that pattern around the world in different practices. This is probably why I feel so drawn and curious about the practice of hoodoo, because it is not at all the same as Umbanda and Spiritism in Brazil, but it's similar, and it's so exciting to be able to find something that at its ground level is so similar. All right, so back to what I was saying about house spirits, because there was something that bothered me that I left out, because I was talking about house materials, the materials that houses are made from, and I touched on wood, and I touched on stone, and I touched on dirt and mud and brick and all of that type of beautiful fun stuff. But what I neglected to speak of, in the same vein that I feel like it probably goes without saying, but yet I feel like I need to say it, and that is the furniture that's in your house, the materials that you bring into your home, are part of the energies that you start to include when you are, creating a home, so to speak. And again, the difference between house and home are very different. And so I'm a fan of wood. I just love wood. I love having wooden furniture. I love having wooden frames and I like leather and genuine leather, which I'm sorry, my vegan friends. It's just something that I've grown up with and something that I feel great comfort in. Leather lasts such a long time, and there is a shamanic connection there to leather and wood and crystal and stone. Call it what you will. Whatever you bring into your home brings with it a specific energy. Now, mass-produced plastic, glass, even to a degree, because we know how glass is made and it's rooted in sand. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen sand under a microscope, but we're talking about tiny little shells. And we know that shells are the homes of small, tiny little creatures. So if you've never looked at sand under a microscope, please go and do that, because it's like mind blown. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because what we choose to bring into our home is so very important. The way that we choose to furnish our home, again, it's so very important. The position in which we place our furniture, so very important to the flow of energy in your house. Likewise, shoes. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about foot track magic here. We're going to talk a little bit about shoe magic, because if you've never heard it before, then let me just tell you, shoes have so much magic associated to them. The practice, especially in folk magic, there are cultures that do not permit shoes to be worn inside the house. There's a very good energetic reason for that, and that is that your shoes will pick up whatever it is that you're walking on. So we know how culture can be, right? We know how people, not so much culture, but people can be. We have got, let's get a little gross here, we've got people spitting on sidewalks, we've got a little bit of like dogs pissing everywhere and shitting everywhere and that kind of thing. We've got a lot of like bubble gum and sticky stuff and yuckiness and food and it's the rotten side of life. Like, your shoes are in contact with the rotten side of life, so to speak. Likewise, you can be wandering through a graveyard and you will have graveyard dirt stuck to the bottom of your shoe, and that's heavy business. Graveyard magic is no joke. It is heavy business. I touched on it in brief in that house spirits video. I've been asked to do a video about that, and I will, but it's going to take me a minute to do that, simply because, as I previously stated, my spirits are not of the graveyard. My particular spirits don't want me to be in a graveyard, and that's totally fine, but I still do graveyard work for specific reasons, and I have a good agreement with my spirits about that. But I don't have the same spirits as my baby sister. My baby sister could sleep in a cemetery and nothing would happen to her. She would just be safe there. And it really depends on who your spirits are. Doesn't it? Anyway, but if you've come through a cemetery and you have cemetery dirt stuck to the bottom of your shoes and you walk into your home, you're bringing spirits in there with you. You're bringing the juju of the dead in there with you. And the juju of the dead isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing, because it's unidentifiable. Until you learn how to read spirits and until you learn how to understand the thing called vibes, right? And vibe is such a word, but it really does beautifully encapsulate the feeling that you get when a spirit is near. Like, you get a vibe. It's either the heebie-jeebies, or it's a little, alertness, or it's a feeling of comfort, or it's a feeling of cold and trepidation. Like, the vibe that a spirit can exude speaks volumes. My grandma, this is sharing a little bit of little wisdom from my dearly departed grandmother, who was a beautiful babalorisha of the Umbanda Terreiro that I am from. And she would often say that spirits have a certain level of consciousness. Create a pathworking video for determining spirits. Aw, that's beautiful. That's a great idea, actually. She would often say that spirits have a level of consciousness. Spirits, not ghosts, but spirits have a level of consciousness. And if you are in a space, and this is how it was explained to me, especially when I was a tiny little person who was absolutely terrified of ghosts, just still probably am to this day. I find ghosts very disconcerting for various reasons that I will get into at another time. I really connect with a ghost, like emotionally connect with a ghost. As soon as there's a ghost nearby, I start to feel all of the sorrow, all of the pain, and it's something that I don't like to do. Like, who wants to do that? Who wants to put themselves in that particular position? I certainly don't. So more about that later. But if a spirit comes to you or is in your vicinity and you are feeling fear, you're feeling trepidation, that is your constitution. That's your own soul, your spirit, responding to that and telling you that what is near you is not okay. And if you are feeling nervous, and this is a difference, okay? If you're feeling genuine fear, not nervousness, not a little apprehension or anxiety. Spirit energy can make you feel apprehensive and can make you feel a little anxious because it's confusing. You're like, I don't know what this is. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what it wants. All of that type of thought, right, is attached there if you're inexperienced. And that can sometimes be confused with fear, and you can put your shields up really quickly then, and that way there's no communication. Like it's a good thing to learn how to shield, especially a good spirit shield. People think they know how to shield. They don't know how to shield. I'm sorry. You can visually see this. You can visually see this in Spiritist Center. You know, when you're told to ground and to center and to shield, like to shield yourself. And you can see the spirits, who the spirits wander to. You can actively see. And that person over there thinks that they're shielding themselves, and they are not. The spirit's able to go all around them, really caress their auric field. It's absolutely remarkable. In Spiritist Center, your vision of spirit is amplified. That is what it's designed to do. Aside from the fact that they actively horse spirits, a spirit enters their body and begins to manipulate and talk and dance and sing and do the things. You can see the embodiment of that spirit and how it goes around and moves around people. And you know, not everyone knows how to shield. No matter how hard that person may be trying, there's just something about that shield that is lacking. It's not a judgment, it is not a criticism, and it's not mockery to say this, because shielding for spirit needs to be an act of spirit. Your spirits will help you to shield. Without knowing your spirits, without calling your spirit allies to a ready stance and attention, you're not shielding. You're projecting something from your mind, which is one form of shielding, but it's not spirit shielding. And spirit shielding is very different to your standard energy shields. You can put up a white light shield, you can put up a mirror ball, you can put up static, you can put out spikes, you can do anything with your visualization. And that works in some instances, but when we're talking about spirits don't give a fuck about that. Spirits respond to the spirit of things, i.e. the other spirits. That's why we are taught to really get cozy with things like spirit guides and ancestors. Ancestors will hold your space. Ancestors, good ancestors that you have, that you have worked with and known especially. So when I need a really solid shield, I call on my Orisha, because I've been working with my Orisha since I was a baby. I've had the same spirits since I was a baby. I toggle between Iansa and Emanja because there's a little something there. There's a little tussle, tug of war. You know what I'm trying to say. But my Ogun is very solid. My ancestors are very solid. It does help that my ancestors were also spiritists. So I can actively call the spirit of my grandmother, who was my Babalorisha, my high priestess, in an act of shielding. She will come to me. I can also call on her spirit. So when she was living, she embodied and horsed specific numbers of spirits. So I grew up not just with my grandmother, but with my grandmother's spirits. So in an afternoon, she would enter into a ritual spirit possession with a beautiful preto velho named Tia Maria. Tia Maria is someone that I have sat with and conversed with. I've drunk cachaça out of her little coconut tassel. I've been smoked by her. She's thrown the buzios for me. Like, I have had years and years and years of relationship speaking with this particular spirit, incorporated by my grandmother, right? So I can call on those spirits as well because they're part of my family line. They make up a part of my ancestry. I can call on my own preto velho. I can call on the preto velhos of my terreiro. So I have a lot of spirits that I can call to. And when I am in a position where I need to shield, I'm not visualizing anything. I am conjuring and calling my spirits to me. And it takes a lot of energy to do that because your spirits will interact with your auric field like you would not believe. Imagine this. Let me give you let's say you're empathic or you're sensitive to energy and you're smack bang in the middle of one of the busiest cities during like Black Friday sales where people are just like tussling and pulling, and it's like chaos, and it's capitalism at its worst, right? But there's so much energy to that. Likewise, a mosh pit. Think of a mosh pit if you've ever been in one. I'm trying to give examples of things that people could actively try to experience. Or just chaos at a supermarket. Like, the supermarket is one of the worst places in the world. I hate supermarkets. Like, I just need a personal shopper like yesterday. But these places are convergence of energy. They converge and they compress, or they imprint themselves on your auric field, and you feel bothered by that. Have you ever had that experience? I'd like to see in the comments, where is a place that you have gone where it's had an overwhelming energy and it's bothered you, like it's really actually affected your mood. Your mood itself will respond to this. Like, you know how you're feeling, right? So I cannot help but feel utterly drained when I go to a supermarket. Like, the supermarket is an all-day affair for me because, yeah, I might only be there for like an hour and a bit. Airport, yes. Susie, yes, the airport. No. Don't back into me, dude. I felt very like compromised then. He's very close to me, like so close to me. I was about to toot my horn. Yeah, so anywhere that you go that you feel that compression of spirit energy, that is what it feels like to call your spirits to you in a way, except instead of it being a really kind of like, what would I say, a bit of a, you know, an overwhelming and annoying and emotionally draining experience, it actually boosts you up. So it's the same level of activity around you, in part, depending on how many spirits you're calling and who your allies are and all of that type of thing, and the energy that they bring as well. Like, it feels very active around you, but in a totally good way. In a totally like good way. It's a little chaotic in there. So you have to shield quite nicely. Anyway, how did we get onto this subject, folks? That's right, graveyards. This is why I should never do lives, because I'm always floating off on a tangent. Nevertheless, what we have as well is, in keeping with that whole graveyard dirt, bringing that foot track magic into the house, this is why it's good to keep the shoes outside, or to have a shoe spray before you enter the house. Shoe sprays, cleans and wipes and those types of things are important to the process and will help you significantly. And you don't have to be a genius to figure out what to make that of. Use vinegar if nothing else. If you have nothing else, then just use vinegar. Vinegar and lemon juice and things like that to wipe your shoes. A little tea tree, little eucalyptus, something like that, that is both hygienic and also spiritually cleansing. So little sprays like that are great to have. And stepping out of a cemetery, like, I have to do a whole cemetery video for you guys. Things that people give you, right? Donated things, or secondhand objects, or inherited things, bits and pieces. Like, we've all inherited something, or most of us have. I've inherited a lot of furniture in my life. Luckily, I know who gave them to me and the conditions of the house and all of that type of thing. But if you don't, if you're not aware of that type of thing, if you're antiquing, for instance, that furniture, you can yourself diagnose your furniture if you have the ability to practice psychometry. Okay, so psychometry is the laying of hands. It picks up a story, like a visual story. People who practice psychometry have a magic touch, and that magic touch is separate to that of your clairs. Psychometry will trigger a clair response, though, and you either have a skill as a psychometrist or you don't. It's as simple as that. It's not something that we can naturally develop. Some people have an aptitude for it, and you certainly can try and practice and achieve small results, but there are some people that are just born to have this gift, and there are others who are not born to have this gift. It's not to say that you can't cultivate it, it just will never be as strong as those who are called to it, whose spirits, not even called to it, spirits just like give it to you and then like have at it. And you're like, I have no desire to do this. Like, too bad, you've got it. And when you have these skills and they're amplified, that makes for a very interesting life, folks. All right, so the things that we bring into our home, this is really important. The people that we bring into our home, like, keep your vibe high, folks. And that's not a new agey thing of saying it, but if you're going to bring in like downy people, like Debbie Downers, like really, like, not to defame the word Debbie or the name Debbie, because I have some beautiful friends called Debbie, but it's a little Australian saying here. But if you're bringing people that are constantly drudging in their problems and, you know, decompressing in your space, in your sanctuary, then guess what? That energy is staying in your home unless you're prepared to linger. In Brazil, we have this little thing where if somebody enters your place and they upset you and they're no longer welcome, and you don't want to say, fuck off, you're not welcome in my house anymore. As soon as that person leaves, you get the straw broom, you tip it upside down and you put it behind the door, but it has to be immediately after that person leaves. No one can enter the space at that time. No one can leave the space at that time. It has to be as soon as that person leaves. I've seen my family do this so many times. There was a little neighborhood kid who was just a difficult soul, but she loved me. She used to gravitate towards me. I'd be sitting on the front porch of our beach house writing, like, you know, 11-year-old poetry and thinking myself as like the next Keats and, you know, all of that kind of good fun stuff. And she would come over with her like eyes and be like, what are you doing? Do you want to play? that kind of thing. And her vibe was annoying to me. And she would come over and then she would do the same thing to my mother. Can she play? And my mother's like, I don't like her vibe. My grandma's like, I don't like her vibe. I'm like, I don't like her vibe. She wants to play with me. I don't see how this, you know, affects you. So the next day that she came through and wandered through a house uninvited, they put the broom up and she never came back. And she used to live across the road from me and still look and wave, but never come into the house, which was just magic, just absolutely fucking magic. So there are things that you can do to keep people away from your home, people that you don't want, whose feelings you don't want to hurt. Because let's face it, you know, it's unkind to say you're no longer welcome, especially if that person is hurting, going through a difficult time, or just holding on to cyclical baggage that you just can't deal with. It's kinder to work magic to keep them away than it is to say you are no longer welcome in this space. You know, boundary laying is just as much a magical activity as it is a verbal, everyday, man up adult activity. Woman up as well, right? So boundaries, both spiritual and physical, need to be placed from time to time, especially where the house is concerned, because of the spirits. Now, you may bring something into the house, or a spirit may enter your home piggybacking a mate, a child, a possession, something. And your spirits, your house spirits, if they're well fed and well looked after and honored and all of that kind of, you know, beautiful thing, they will alert you to the fact that there is a foreign spirit in your home that needs to be looked at very carefully. And this is like a brilliant spirit alarm, a good warning. Spirits can sometimes blend, but house spirits are very particular. They will make allowances for things like ancestors, because ancestors are naturally attached to you, and that's family. So they make space for family. But other than that, house spirits don't enjoy the concept of intruders just as much as you as an individual do not enjoy the concept of an intruder. So these are all things to pay attention to. And the more you interact with your house spirits, the more you will start to understand the push and pull of energy, the entry and exit of spirits. A house spirit, if you ask a house spirit to remove an unwanted spirit, they can do that. It's part of what they do. They're keeping the energetics of your house intact and safe. But your relationship with your house spirit will determine how willing that spirit is to help you. If you've been ignoring your house spirit for a very long time, then you need to do some work to remind that house spirit that you are there, that you are respectful, and it's a relationship. It's just like developing a personal relationship with friends. You know, you don't meet someone for the first time and then ask them to do something for you. That's very weird, right? It takes a while, and after you've built up that bond with a friend, then what happens is you can lean on your friends for help and support. You know, you can go to your friends and ask them for their wise counsel. You can ask your friends to help you move a piece of furniture and do those types of things, because there is a developed relationship there. There is love, there's affection, there's trust, and all of that. The same rules apply to spirits. You need to work at developing relationships with your spirits. As a spiritist at core, so that's my first point of entry into the world of magic, is working with spirits because of where I come from and the religion that my family practices. Spirits are so involved in life. They are involved in your life, in your everyday life, and being taught how to work with those spirits is so good. You motherfucker. I have to cut this short because I have an asshole parked in front of me that thinks that he can just nudge my car. So I'm gonna go and get into